Hello, welcome to Microeconomics video series. In the previous video, I have briefly discussed the idea of demand. We have touched upon the definition of demand, example of demand. Um, we also looked at the law of demand, demand curve, factors that are affecting demand curve, particularly the movement and the shift of demand curve, and we looked at the very basic linear demand function. In the following video, we're going to be talking about, we're going to have this very similar structure, but we're going to talk about the supply. Supply can be defined as the quantity of goods or services that producers are willing to offer for sale at a given price at specific time period. So in this particular case, we're looking at the producers, one of the essential stakeholders in an economy. Producers are the ones who developed the goods and services and provide them into the market for consumers. The supply, unlike the demand, is profit incentive, meaning that producers are willing to at sell the product as far as there is a profitability for this product. Therefore, the overall quantity supplied of the good really depends on how much consumers are willing to buy the product and how much the producer will be able to produce of it. Supply and demand are both fundamental factors required for estimation and implementation of real life situations. Supply as well as demand are going to be essential in our understanding of equilibrium and our understanding of many other different factors, many other different theories that we're going to be looking at in upcoming videos. So an example of supply can be very similar to demand. We have on this table have a price of chocolate bar, and we have the quantity of chocolate bars supplied per week. In this particular case, uh, the price for 5 chocolate bars is about 50 cents. For 10 chocolate bars, it's $1. For 15 chocolate bars, is $1.5, and for 20 chocolate bars, it's $2. Obviously, the prices might not be real, but if we substitute these prices onto the supply curve, we can see the upsloping line, which obviously clearly shows that upon with increase in the price, the overall number of supplied goods is increasing. In other words, we can say that producers are willing to sell at a higher price, are willing to sell a bigger number of products at a higher price as it brings more profit to the producer. If the price per good or per service is less what producers are desiring, they're going to be producing less of the good in less of the good uh, since the price is going to be lower. So this brings us to the basic idea of law of supply. Law of supply states that as price increases, more of the good is offered for sale by the firms. As price decreases, less of a good is offered by sale by the firms. Unlike the demand graph, this is fairly straightforward. Law of supply is one of the basic and one of the fundamentals in the economy, and it's fairly straightforward to understand. So now we're going to be looking more at the shift of movement along the supply curve. As we can see on the picture on this diagram, supply in the curve, just as demand curve, can shift or leftwards and rightwards, inwards or outwards. So it really depends on your personal preferences, and the overall points on the curve itself can shift either up or down depending on following factors. So the movement along the supply curve really depends on changing price. When the price is increasing, the overall supply of goods is going to increase. If the price decreases, the overall supply of goods will decrease. The shift of supply curve really depends on the following non-price determinants, such as cost of production. If the technological process requires a high cost for the firm, if it has high electricity bills, or if it requires bigger wages for the workers, the overall price of the good is gonna be the overall cost of production is gonna increase, which is not essentially, which essentially upon selling the product is gonna decrease the profits of of the firms. So the overall supply curve is gonna shift to the left. If the costs are manageable, if the costs are low and cost effective, then the supply curve is more likely to shift outwards. Productivity. It is also essential to understand that production, through use of factors of production such as land, capital, and enterprise, requires a certain level of productivity and cost efficiency. Therefore, if the company is not being fully efficient and productive, meaning the resources are either being underused or overused, the overall supply is not going to be efficient, is going to increase the prices, and the overall profitability is going to be lower. Therefore, the supply curve will shift leftwards. If productivity is high, if the cost per each output of the good or service is lower, and the quantity and quality of goods and services increase at the same time, it is very the company or the firm can confidentially increase can see the overall increase in supply curve or the shift outwards. Government intervention is also another factor that will allow the particular firm to increase or decrease their own supply. Taxes, in most cases, increase the prices, decrease the profitability, thus the supply curve shifts leftwards. If the government intervenes with some kind of subsidies or some kind of governmental support, the supply curve is going to shift outwards as the overall cost of production is going to decrease for the producers. Price of related goods is also depends on what kind of good the suppliers are willing to sell, whether this good is demanded by the public or not demanded by the public. It really depends how the producer are gonna supply the product itself in the market. And the final one is supply shocks. Supply shocks often relate to the natural disasters or some kind of conflicts. So whether it is an earthquake, most of the factories or whether most of the firms are going to be affected in some way or another, and therefore their supply is going to decrease, moving leftwards. So the linear supply function is just as similar as demand function, but it just has different values. So the quantity supplied equals to autonomous level supply minus change in quantity supply times the part of price of a single item. So this is fairly straightforward. Similar to the demand, we have the quantity supplied, we have the autonomous level of supply, we have which stands for constant level of supply was whenever the price is zero. So at which point the producers will continue to produce the good or service no matter what the price, no matter what the level of price is. We have change in quantity of supplied, meaning how much it changes per unit, and the price of a single item. This is just as in previous videos. This is a very brief introduction to a linear supply function. We're going to look more into it when we're going to be covering equilibrium and going to be covering further topics. This video again is to have a very strong and confident understanding of the topic. The further research can be done at any time. Thank you very much for watching this video.